In September 1974, he was halfway through his midnight show at Caesar's Palace when security rushed toward a mysterious woman trying to reach the stage. But when she called out a name only one person from his past would know, the chairman of the board did something he had never done in his entire career. The untouchable legend froze, his voice cracked, and the entire audience watched as the king stepped down from his throne. But who was this woman who could shatter Frank Sinatra's armor with a single word? And what did she whisper to him that made him break every rule he lived by? The air inside Caesar's palace hangs thick with smoke and anticipation. It's September 1974, and the midnight show is Frank Sinatra's domain, a glittering cave where mobsters sit beside movie stars, where champagne flows like water, and where the man they call the chairman of the board commands every breath in the room. The stage lights carve him out of darkness, a silhouette in a tuxedo that costs more than most people make in a month. At 58, his face shows the miles, lines etched deep around his eyes, a certain heaviness in his jaw. But when he opens his mouth, the voice still owns the night. He's 3 songs deep into the set. The orchestra swells behind him, brass and strings weaving together in perfect synchronization. And he's working the crowd the way he always does. That perfect balance of charm and danger that made him a legend. A joke about his last divorce lands perfectly. A wink at a blonde in the front row sends ripples of laughter through her table. The audience eats it up because this is what they paid for. Not just the music, but the proximity to power, to fame, to a man who seems untouchable. Women lean forward in their seats. Men loosen their ties and order another round. This is the Frank Sinatra experience, polished to perfection over 30 years of performances. The room itself pulses with energy. Crystal chandeliers catch the stage lights and throw fractured rainbows across the ceiling. Waitresses in sequin dresses navigate between tables, balancing trays of martinis and scotch. The velvet curtains along the walls absorb sound, creating an intimate cocoon despite the size of the space. Everything is designed to make you feel like you're part of something exclusive, something special. And at the center of it all, Frank holds court like the king he's always been. Then the atmosphere changes, a disturbance near the front, just beyond the orchestra pit. Security guards move quickly, their black suits cutting through the golden light like shadows. Frank sees it mid-verse, his eyes narrowing as he tries to make out what's happening past the glare of the spotlights. He doesn't stop singing, professionals never stop, but there's a flicker of irritation crossing his face. Someone's causing a scene, someone's interrupting his show. His fingers tighten almost imperceptibly around the microphone. This is his stage, his kingdom, and interruptions are not tolerated. The woman is small, older, dressed in clothes that don't belong in a place like this. No evening gown, no jewelry catching the light. Just a simple dress and worn shoes. The kind of outfit that speaks of bus stations and long journeys and determination. She's pushing against the guards, not violently, but desperately, like someone who's traveled too far to turn back now. Her gray hair is pinned back neatly, and even from the stage, there's something dignified about her despite the chaos she's causing. The audience begins to notice. Heads turn. Conversations drop to whispers. The spell Frank has woven starts to fray at the edges. Frank's voice continues, but his attention is split. He gestures subtly to his conductor. A signal they've used 1,000 times before. Wrap it up, something's wrong. The conductor nods, already adjusting the tempo, tightening the arrangement. The musicians follow without missing a beat. This is a professional operation, built to handle anything. But even they can feel the tension building, a disturbance in the atmosphere that doesn't fit the script. The song ends. Applause fills the room, but it feels hollow, distracted. Frank doesn't acknowledge it. He's staring down at the commotion, his hand raised to shield his eyes from the lights. The guards have the woman by both arms now, ready to escort her out through the side exit, to remove this embarrassing disruption before it becomes a story. But before they can move, she does something that stops everything. She calls out a single word, cutting through the noise of 2,000 people like a knife through silk. Francis! Not Frank, not Mr. Sinatra. Francis. His birth name? The name his mother called him when he was small and powerless and afraid. The the name nobody uses anymore. The showroom falls into a silence so complete you can hear the ice melting in glasses. Frank Sinatra, the man who never freezes, stands perfectly still. His face goes blank. Then something cracks behind his eyes. That fracture exposes everything he's worked so hard to hide. Behind the myth, behind the swagger and the headlines and the sold-out shows, Frank Sinatra is exhausted. He's been on the road for 11 months straight, grinding through city after city, because stopping means thinking, and thinking means confronting everything he's running from. His third marriage to Mia Farrow ended in disaster. His affair with Ava Gardner still haunts him like a ghost he can't bury. He married Barbara Marx 6 months ago, and already the tabloids are circling, waiting for him to fail again. They always expect him to fail. They love watching kings fall. Every morning he wakes up to see his face on magazine covers with headlines that dissect his personal life like he's a specimen under glass. His throat hurts. It's been hurting for weeks, but he doesn't tell anyone because admitting weakness is not something he does. He drinks Jack Daniels between sets to numb it, smokes Camels to steady his nerves, and takes pills his doctor prescribed without asking too many questions. Sleep comes in 2-hour intervals on buses and in hotel rooms that all look the same. He wakes up sometimes not knowing what city he's in, and that terrifies him more than he'll ever admit. Yesterday was Phoenix, tomorrow is San Francisco, tonight is Vegas, but it could be anywhere. The cities blur together into one endless performance. The pressure is constant and suffocating. His manager wants him to record another album. His lawyer needs signatures on contracts he doesn't have time to read. His accountant keeps calling about money. There's always money problems, even when you're Frank Sinatra, because the lifestyle requires rivers of cash to maintain. The houses, the private planes, the entourage, the ex-wives, the lawyers, the hangers-on who smile and take and disappear when you need them. He's built an empire, but empires need feeding, and he's the one who has to keep performing to keep it all alive. Tonight was supposed to be easy. Caesar's Palace is home turf. He knows every lighting cue, every entrance, every joke that lands. The crowd here worships him. They don't ask questions, they don't demand vulnerability. They just want the performance, and that's what he gives them, show after show, because the performance is all he has left. When he's on that stage, he's not Francis Albert Sinatra from Hoboken, the skinny Italian kid whose father was a boxer and whose mother ran numbers out of their apartment. He's Frank Sinatra, untouchable, larger than life. The man who dined with presidents and terrified studio executives and could sell out any venue in the world with a single phone call. But this life is killing him. Every night he puts on the tuxedo, it feels heavier. Every night he steps into the spotlight, the distance between who he is and who they expect him to be grows wider. He's surrounded by people constantly, managers, bodyguards, musicians, hangers-on. But he's never been more alone. No one asks how he's really doing. Not a single person dares. They want the legend, not the man. And so he gives them the legend, even as it hollows him out from the inside. Sometimes in those rare quiet moments backstage, he catches his reflection in a mirror and barely recognizes the person staring back. There are moments when he wonders what it would be like to just stop, to walk away from all of it and disappear somewhere quiet where nobody knows his name. But he can't. The machine is too big, the expectations too heavy, and somewhere deep down, he knows that without the stage, without the spotlight, he doesn't know who he is anymore. The act isn't just what he does, it's who he's become. He needed tonight to be perfect, because perfect means he's still in control. Perfect means the cracks don't show. Perfect means he can convince himself for one more night that he's still the man everyone thinks he is. But now, there's a woman being dragged away by security, and she's calling him Francis. And suddenly, control is slipping through his fingers like sand. The foundation he's built his entire identity on is shaking, and the crowd is watching it happen in real time. Frank's hand drops slowly to his side. The microphone hangs loose in his grip, forgotten. His eyes lock onto the woman, and for a moment, the entire room holds its breath. The guards have stopped moving, confused by his reaction, waiting for a signal. But Frank isn't giving signals. He's staring at this woman like he's seen a ghost, and maybe he has. Color drains from his face, all the practiced charm stripped away, leaving something raw and unguarded. Across the space between them, she meets his gaze. Her eyes are wet with tears, but there's a smile on her face, gentle, knowing, the kind of smile that carries decades of memory. She's probably in her 70s, dressed in a simple floral dress and a cardigan that's seen better days. Her hands shake slightly as she reaches toward him, not aggressively, just reaching the way you might reach for someone you thought you'd lost forever. "Francis," she says again, quieter this time, but the microphones catch it anyway. "It's me. It's Rosa." The name hits him like a physical blow. His jaw tightens, and for a second, it looks like he might turn away, might signal security to finish the job and get her out of here so he can salvage what's left of the show. Everyone in the room is watching him, waiting to see what the chairman of the board will do when his carefully constructed world gets interrupted. The band members exchange glances. His conductor holds his baton, frozen in midair. Nobody knows what comes next, because this isn't in the script, and Frank always follows the script. But then, his composure gives way. Frank's shoulders drop. He brings his free hand up to his face, pressing his palm against his forehead, and when he lowers it, his eyes are glistening. He shakes his head slowly, not in denial, but in disbelief, like he can't quite process that this is happening. Rosa Benedetto. The woman who lived 3 doors down from his family in Hoboken. The woman who watched him when his mother Dolly worked double shifts at the chocolate factory. The woman who made him soup when he was sick and taught him how to tie his shoes and told him stories about Italy while his parents fought in the next room. He hasn't seen her in 40 years, maybe longer. When fame came, when the world opened up and swallowed him whole, all those people from before, the neighborhood, the streets, the small rooms and smaller dreams, they became another life, not forgotten exactly, but distant, unreachable, part of a past he'd left behind because staying meant staying small, and Frank Sinatra was never going to stay small. "Get your hands off her." His voice cuts through the silence, sharp and commanding. The security guards release her immediately, stepping back with their hands raised. Frank sets the microphone down on its stand with a care that seems almost ceremonial. The orchestra stares. The audience waits. The whole world is watching him, and for once in his life, he doesn't care about the performance. He walks to the edge of the stage, not the measured, controlled walk of a performer, but the hesitant steps of a man approaching something fragile. When he reaches the edge, he crouches down, bringing himself closer to her level. Rosa is crying openly now, both hands pressed to her mouth. The silence in the room is absolute. You could hear a pin drop. You could hear hearts breaking. "How did you find me?" Frank's voice is soft, barely audible. But the microphones are sensitive enough to catch it. There's no performance in his tone now, no swagger, just a question from one human being to another. "I've been trying for so long," Rosa says, her voice trembling. "I saw you were playing here, and I thought, I just wanted to see you again, Francis, to see that you were okay, to tell you how proud I am." Frank closes his eyes. His whole body seems to sag, like something that's been holding him upright for decades just gave way. Frank stands slowly, and the weight of every eye in the room presses down on him. This is the moment where he's supposed to handle it smoothly, say something charming, diffuse the tension with a joke, and get back to the show. That's what Frank Sinatra would do. That's what the legend demands. But when he looks down at Rosa, still standing there with tears streaming down her weathered face, he realizes he doesn't want to be Frank Sinatra anymore. "Give me a second," he says to the audience, his voice rough. Then he does something nobody has ever seen him do in his entire career. He descends into the audience, not off to the side, not through the wings, but directly down into the space where the audience sits, into the world beyond the lights and the performance. The move sends a ripple of shock through the crowd. Security starts to move forward, but he waves them off with a sharp gesture. This is his moment, and nobody's going to take it from him. He walks to Rosa and stands in front of her for a long moment, just looking. Then he reaches out and takes both her hands in his. They're small and papery, marked with age spots and years of work. He holds them carefully, like they're made of something precious. "I'm sorry," he says, and his voice cracks on the words. "I'm so sorry I didn't stay in touch. I got lost somewhere along the way." Rosa shakes her head, squeezing his hands. "You were always meant for bigger things, Francis. We all knew it. Your mama knew it. I just wanted you to know that we never forgot you, that I never forgot the little boy who used to sing in my kitchen. His expression crumbles completely. He pulls Rosa into an embrace, wrapping his arms around her small frame, and she holds him back the way she probably held him 60 years ago, when he was small and scared and the world was still huge and unknown. The audience watches in stunned silence as one of the most powerful men in entertainment buries his face in an old woman's shoulder and weeps. Not dramatic sobs, but quiet, shaking tears that come from somewhere deep and long buried. When he finally pulls back, he wipes his eyes with the back of his hand, not caring that his makeup is ruined or that 2,000 people just watched him break down. He looks at Rosa and then at the stage and makes a decision. "Can you walk okay?" he asks her. She nods, confused. Frank takes her arm gently and helps her toward the stage. The audience begins to understand what's happening, and a murmur of anticipation builds. Security rushes to bring stairs, and Frank guides Rosa up onto the platform, step by careful step, until they're standing in the lights together. He brings out a chair from the wings and sits her down in the center of the stage. Then he picks up his microphone. "This is Rosa Benedetto," he tells the crowd, his voice steady now, filled with something that sounds like relief. "She took care of me when I was a kid, fed me, looked after me, believed in me before I even believed in myself. And I haven't seen her in 40 years because I was too busy being Frank Sinatra to remember who Francis Sinatra was." He turns to the band. "You guys know The House I Live In?" They nod. It's an old song, one he recorded during the war, about home and belonging and the simple things that make life worth living. He hasn't performed it in years. He signals them to start. As the music begins, Frank sings directly to Rosa. His voice is rougher than usual, breaking on certain notes, but somehow that makes it more powerful, more real. He's not performing anymore. He's just singing to someone he loves, someone who represents everything he left behind in the pursuit of greatness. When he reaches the bridge, his voice cracks completely. And he has to stop for a moment, his hand pressed to his chest. Rosa reaches up and takes his free hand, holding it while he composes himself. Then he finishes the song, every word weighted with meaning. The final note hangs in the air. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, there's absolute silence. Then the audience erupts, but it's not applause exactly. It's something deeper, a release of emotion, a collective recognition that they've witnessed something true. People are standing crying, holding on to each other. They came to see a legend, and instead they saw a human being. And somehow that's infinitely more valuable. Frank helps Rosa to her feet and kisses her on both cheeks. He whispers something in her ear that nobody else can hear, and she nods, patting his face the way a mother would. Security helps her down the stairs, but gently this time, with respect. As she disappears into the wings, Frank stands alone on the stage, looking smaller somehow, more vulnerable. He picks up the microphone one last time. "Thank you for letting me do that," he says simply. Then he launches into My Way, but it sounds different now, less defiant, more grateful. When he reaches the line about regrets, he pauses, looks toward the wings where Rosa vanished, and smiles. A real smile, not a performer's smile. The show ends an hour later, but nobody who was there ever forgets it. The moment never makes the newspapers. No cameras caught it. No recordings exist. But in the years that follow, people who were in the audience that night tell the story over and over, about the night Frank Sinatra stopped being a legend and became a man again, if only for a few minutes. About how sometimes the greatest act of strength is allowing yourself to be weak. About how the people who shape us in the beginning never really leave us, even when we think we've moved too far to look back. Frank sends Rosa home in a limousine that night, with an envelope containing enough money to live comfortably for the rest of her life. He calls her every Sunday after that, until she passes away 3 years later. At her funeral, he sings Ave Maria through his tears, and nobody takes a single photograph. Some moments, he's learned, are too sacred for the world to own.